Hey everybody, JamieStarr here, New World News Network. On this episode, I want to talk about certain topics I've seen kind of floating around in other people's videos. I believe I saw, who was it, Tara McCartney and Brittany Pettibone interview someone, and the topics of MGTOW versus traditionalism came up, and I had been thinking about the MGTOW stuff recently because I think in some aspects I've sort of inadvertently gone that way. When I watched this video, this Karen Straughn's response to Jordan Peterson's comments on MGTOW, because she even points out how there's large segments of people who have men have gone their own way and aren't really aware of the movement or the reasons for it or men's rights activism and everything like that. So also I don't know if you guys can see if it's in the frame right now. I am using one of my actual microphones this time. I was hearing this terrible feedback when I was trying to just talk through my headphones the way I normally do, and I hope that hasn't been there the whole time. If it has, I'm very sorry for everyone, and thank you for tolerating that. I'm going to use this microphone from here on out because it's easy, and I figured out the configurations. And because I have all this recording gear, so I might as well act as professional as I can. Anyway, so a little bit of backstory. As I've mentioned in other videos, I was born through artificial insemination. My mom had me on her own. So I did kind of grow up in the single mother household. My grandmother did live with us. She acted as a second parent. Spent a lot of time when I was sick as a kid with Lyme disease home with her. That's where I probably picked up a lot of my handyman cooking skills and stuff around the house. Like, she could really fix anything. I still can't fix a printer, and she was able to keep up with technology until she passed. So anyway, but so there's really no big male influence. I mean, there was, as I got older, I made friends. Certain parents' fathers would kind of take me under their wing. I did have a friend whose father, we would always go out to concerts with him, different camping events, stuff like that. So there were influences, but not in the household on a daily. This also kind of didn't give me a sort of model relationship to base my future relationships off of. So I just had to kind of go in, with my hormones driving me in one direction, and then things I've been told, treat someone as you'd want to treat yourself. Men and women are equal, so on and so forth, some of these things. And some of them don't really jive together and mesh together. And then you factor in society's standards, which, again, some things may be said, and then when it pans out, they're kind of contrary. So just going to delve into some of those later on. So didn't have a relationship to sort of base things off of. And God, I feel like there was another point I wanted to make on that whole single, So anyway, go on. Let's see, which relationship should I start with? All right. First example is I've had it where in like my high school relationships, you would have it where at first I thought it was like a good thing to date a girl who's independent because I'm a relatively independent, kind of antisocial person. I'm artsy, so I like time to myself to work on music, to work on art, to tinker, to read, to do stuff. So I do like someone who can, be independent in some sort of way. But then I've seen it, if you're dating someone and you're there, someone's going to college, someone isn't, and you sort of like, if you go into one of those situations as in terms of like, oh, well, we were in love, and, the power of love will just get us through it, not going to happen. Um, Especially if you're in the dark when people are, I'm planning on going X direction, you're planning on going Y. And again, just thinking somehow if it's meant to be, it will be. It's not that simple. This is a problem people make going into marriages too. They sort of lose sight of the contractual, legal, business aspect of it because that's what it is in the paperwork, and think it's just love is love is love. Those things tend to fail. You got to be realistic about things. Um, So then I've had it where, understanding this person and knowing them and everything, telling them, all right, well, if you go away to this place, we're going to end up breaking up. You're going to meet someone and, this, and that. And, I put this forth and everything because I knew this person. I knew what they were going to do. I could tell what they were going to do. It's fucking predictable behavior. And that's just what's going to happen in that situation. Again, your irrational children being told date around, hormones are raging. If you've already had sex, you're going to want to have it again. And so on and so forth. Especially now if you're talking someone being on the other side of the world, it's not even like you could drive and visit. So anyway, that happens, and the person meets someone. Presumably this person made advances at them. These advances were welcomed, so on and so forth. So the person comes back to break up with me, and I'm told that it's happening because I said it was going to happen. As if whatever I put out into the ether just becomes reality. As if I said, well, everything's going to work out, we'll be together forever. As if that would happen. Now, it removes the responsibility from the female, and it also removes responsibility from this man that she's leaving me for, presumably because nothing on his part, I guess. And, at that age, again, not having any male influence around to sort of give me a reality check and an insight into these things, but it's simply hypergamy. A girl is going to whatever looks best at the time, unless if they're making a real conscious effort and can see it from a standpoint, because from this girl, from what I understand, from the vibe I always got, her parents seem to have a very good relationship, but that's because it's like a traditional Jewish relationship where the mom converted, and they both seem to know their roles and what parts they're playing and the benefits that come with that. But yeah, removing all the responsibility from all the other parties, and then eventually just saying it's my fault. And everyone just sort of, nods along with these sort of things. And this is one of the aspects that Karen had brought up in the video, where there's this attitude prevailing in society where if a man cheats on a woman, it's because he can't control himself. He can't, he's just a dog, and that's what they do. Now, if a girl does this to a guy or leaves a guy for someone else, it's always viewed as, well, what did you expect her to do? He wasn't, providing enough emotionally, or he wasn't providing enough whatever. I mean, and when you're talking about teenage relationships and college and everything like that, it's pretty much that I wasn't providing readily available dick with the person being on the other side of the world. So, that's all there is to that. Again, it's the sort of hypergamy thing. Like, I go back and forth with this, where I sort of think, because I've been in these situations, and there are girls that I have cheated on, and I feel awful for it. But that's, at this point, I just look at it, it's confusing. Should I feel awful for it? Because there's this, women just sort of trade up one for another. I rarely know any girls that are just single and stay single, because there's always someone trying to holler at them, and they can just settle and then find something else new and shinier when it comes along. So you have that aspect where, these things get twisted around, where even if the girl is doing scumbag behavior to you, everyone else is going to see you as being responsible as a guy. I never had anyone tell me this or tell me to avoid this, or it's crazy. The rules are not equal. So then a couple other relationships happened. And I'm trying to think. That was a long relationship, but I don't think That was a really bad one. The one where I was engaged. Now, this one had problems because, again, you have two people with two sort of sets of expectations, what they want from life, where they're going, what they, and if these things aren't properly communicated, or if someone isn't, properly communicating their point and just kind of nodding along while their actions are doing otherwise, it won't work out. Now, this is the one where the system got involved and everything like that. So I was engaged to this girl. She was going to school. And then, I was the only one being sort of down to the ground, realistic about things. So I would tell her, all right, I know you want to live over there with your friends, at college, and I understand that, they want to go abroad, but who's paying for all of this? I know your family isn't like well off. Her mother is actually the granddaughter of or maybe the daughter of like top Italian like old school mafia before the new school came in. Like that side of the family owns shipping ports and all sorts of crazy stuff. But anyway, so I told her, I'm living with a friend, have a house over here. You just gotta, you can commute. It's a 15-20 minute drive across the river. So she does that, at some point she's listening to me and everything like that. Then the sort of social aspect where as they're getting out of school, all of her friends have apartments. And I always try to explain to her, listen, apartments really don't make sense. You never own it. You're just paying tons of money. Now, when she was in college, her parents were willing to co-sign a loan for her to get a house. Now, we didn't go through with this because her parents, at this point we were engaged, they wanted me to be there like under a lease to her. And I said, listen, I understand why they're doing this. I even understand it and cannot take it personal because it's completely smart on their end with them being co-signed into this. But I don't want business contracts being put in the middle of our relationship. That's all there is to it. If we were to break up, I would leave. What, like, you don't need that written in paper. Like, what would you expect me to do otherwise? And if we were to break up, would you want me to stay there? Like, what? I don't understand. So anyway, have it where we were going to get a house, and the next thing you know, as all of her friends are getting out of school, they all get apartments. She wants to get an apartment. And I try to explain to her, I'm like, listen, as things are, you just graduated, you haven't got a teaching position. I'm, doing X, Y, and Z, booking gigs, working at a driving range or whatever. Like, we can't afford it in New York, and I thought the whole plan was to move out of New York and to, like, live off the grid and, all this stuff that I'm into and I had planned, and she would just say, yeah, I want that, that's so amazing, oh my god, tiny home, straw bale home, whatever. But the social pressure where all of the friends, have now made the step to, oh, well, they all have apartments. They have all their college debt that I managed, from living there and everything like that, and you only have a smaller portion of that because you listened to my advice, and now you don't want to listen, and you want an apartment. And now you magically come across and say, oh, yeah, but I got my teaching degree in New York, so I have to stay in New York. All the time while you were saying you want to leave New York, well, now you suddenly have to stay because the piece of paper is for New York. Again, something that should have been said all the time. People saying they're planning one direction and going the other direction. So then there's all those issues. And then at some point it comes because, I hadn't been had an actual career. Music is a very unstable thing when it's like recording and gigs and and then you're just working like a $15 an hour part-time job between that. So then there would be conversations about okay, well, if we do get a house, this and that in my family. And I found this where is it, this picture, because this is pretty much what it was. You know, the man wanting a traditional relationship, basically, where the man provides all of these things to a woman. And again, being raised to a single woman who is independent and was able to do everything on her own, you don't, you're sort of told the whole time that this societal thing is no longer expected. And then someone comes who acts as if they're with, the new standards of society, then comes around and says, oh, well, my family thinks this, they think that. And mind you, you're the one who just got a degree in education. If you get a teaching job, there's, health insurance and everything like that. We were talking about going 50-50 on a house before, and now there's all this sudden, you're supposed to provide X, Y, and Z, and I'm looking at her saying, well, then what is your salary? What's your money going towards? Oh, my car and other stuff. It's like, okay, so you want me paying all the bills while you're out working, being independent. I mean, this is the problem with the independent female mindset. They're independent, but they're supposed to be able to depend on you. It's just that if you ever depend on them, you're looked at as dead weight, everything like that. Again, Karen brings this up in the video, and it's made by a point about like a guy carrying groceries or something. It's so then, that relationship, towards the end of it, she would just start every other week. There would be like some random guy who popped up who she had befriended. Oh, well, this guy, is a student teacher in this school district, or this guy I met at this gym, or, whatever. And then trying to put forth to me this naive idea that they're all talking to her just because they want to be friends or something like that. And I tried to tell her, like, that day and age is over. Like, people are busy, they have responsibilities, they don't have time to just be taking on friends like that. How much time do you have for your friends as is? And you're just gonna have some, random guy friend? No, like, either you're an idiot or you're being fucking two-faced. So then, next thing you know, I'm asked out of nowhere, if we break up, would we still be friends? And I, knee-jerk response, no. Why would we? Which one of my exes am I friends with? The one I was friends with, I stopped being friends with for you. Why? Why? Why would we be friends? And then, of course, I get the, oh, but we're different, this, and that. And some of these women, you're just a ride for the moment. See, men see relationships as investments. At least I did. I saw it as something I was putting time into because there would be a reward in the long term. And women just see it as this is the ride I'm on at the moment. And if I'm no longer having fun, I'm going to hop off and hop on to the next one. Sorry, it's just what they do. And I've seen it over and over, and this is why I've just kind of stepped back from it, because I see how it is, and I see the options available to them, and I see what we have to do to even entertain being one of these options, and I just don't have time for it. So, ask me if we'll still be friends. I say no. A week or two later, she comes home from work, and she's like, I'm breaking up with you, there's someone else, whatever. Even her friends, it's, online and stuff with the whole saying you're in a relationship, then saying you're out of one. Even when it was announced, even her friends were like, oh, are you back with Jamie? And when people were like, no, it's someone else, they were all immediately like the handful of them that were also friends with me were like, oh, that's kind of scumbaggy. Like, you just sort of put it out there to the world that you're hopping from one to another and everything else. And, I could do a video on teachers and all the articles I see on teachers and the amount of them molesting students and everything like that. And I could tie it into personal stuff I know about these other girls and stuff that's out there online that I didn't put out online, but I know who these people are in these pictures because I've been in those places and know who they are. But I mean, they use fake names online like they're fucking MI5 Secret Service agents because they don't want anyone to know, you know, the way they go from one relationship to another, how many relationships they've had in such a short span of time. Some of them even, like, they intentionally post the most unflattering, wasted pictures of themselves as if, you know, because again, they're sold this woman empowerment narrative, which is basically do everything you will be ashamed of. By doing sloppy mess activities and going on the cock carousel one too many rounds, that's the empowerment. That's your badge of honor. And even though you have to hide it behind a fake name to the general public, I mean, that's the thing. You have outright teachers molesting students, but even the ones that aren't molesting them are hypersexualized. Half of them are online nude in fucking ex-girlfriend porn stuff. And again, I didn't put the pictures there. I just found them and know who they are. But then the fact that some of them will be online nude and, you know that there are porno videos and pictures of them online of thousands of views, hundreds of sites, think they're hiding behind a fake Facebook name when, girl, that's your face. It's not your name, it's your fucking face, and you can't hide your face. But then they'll go on their other social networks and post things about how the erotic is spiritual and how sex saved your life. And it's all this, like, hedonistic, sloppy mess behavior from the people who are supposed to be educating the future. And the reality is the only reason sex saves their lives and they view it as such this amazing thing is that that's basically their only into adulthood, because they're still in the classroom. They're never leaving school. They're never leaving the system that they're born into. It's their sort of prison system. So the only sort of thing that brings them into adulthood, and because they don't want children, they're spending time with everyone else's children. And that's it. It's just the sex. So they need as much of it as possible. Or it's materialism. It's just very hedonistic behavior. And that's why these degenerative values are being so easily preached in the school systems. Sorry, I knew this was going to happen, that I was going to do this MGTOW video, and because all of my relationships are with teachers, I would end up on the teacher point. I mean to do another video of it, but I'm telling you, it's going to cause trouble because of what I have and everything like that. And anyway, so, again, this person's leaving me and then trying to retain this sort of friendship. Well, because she's got a new boyfriend, he doesn't like that, because why would you like your new girlfriend keeping in touch with her ex-fiance? So I have him continually texting me, you need to stop texting my girl's phone. I'm paying for this phone. I don't want her talking to you on it. I mean, and, doing this sort of possessive thing that right out the box I think would be unattractive, but, whatever. And, but I guess all she's looking at it as is, oh, well, he's providing me a phone. It's instead of, oh, well, he's now monitoring who you're talking to. But so I'm like, okay, well, she hit me up. I'm just responding. Let's keep in mind when she was asking about being friends, I was the one saying no, and she was the one guilt tripping me over it. So just know that I'm just responding. So that would happen a few other times where she would hit me up, I would respond, then he would come back on some bullshit. So eventually I was just like, listen, little boy, I'm gonna fuck you up. And we live in the same city, and you don't know who I am. And I can make it so it's not safe. And it's that simple. It's just a few phone calls. It's a small, small town. Small, small town. It's just a few phone calls. And going to the store for a gallon of milk could be a very dangerous thing. So anyway, and I guess because my ex, knew that about me, this is probably why it happened, where next thing you know, there's a restraining order against me. Now, keep in mind, I never threatened her. I never, once she broke up with me, I just said, I want you out of here. And I just threw all of her stuff in black bags. I probably cursed her, probably called her a slut. I was like, you're fucking ridiculous. There's obviously, but at no point was I physical or would have tried to put hands on her. If anything, I'm just telling her she's disgusting. And then, so get the restraining order, and it's basically like just a list of shit talking. I mean, it's just, does he have access to guns? Yes, he has access to guns. Fuck, it's America. Who doesn't have access to guns? He has a history of fucking doing X, Y, and Z drug, as if she wasn't at my side doing X, Y, and Z drugs with me. Like, it's very funny how someone can be in a relationship with someone for like 5 years or so, be at their side doing all of this shit with them, and then all of a sudden turn all of that shit onto them and just make it seem as if they were like some innocent party who was a victim of all of this, instead of advocating and encouraging. I mean, it's so crazy to have reality sort of shifted on you by the system, and then now it's like, okay, well, now I have to act like life was this because this is what the paperwork says. Because you get one of these things, and then you go to court, and because it's all just a fucking business to them, I show up and they're like, okay, here's your representative, this, and that. The judge looks at her and she's like, I already know what you want. I mean, it was railroading like you would not believe. So then I sit down with the judge, or the lawyer, and he just basically rereads me the terms of the thing, and I'm looking at him like, I know how to read. I'm trying to ask you, how can I safeguard myself where if she hits me up, they're like, I don't like this whole idea that this is laid out in a way where if I have a phone, she could text message me every minute of the day, and if I respond and say, please stop, I end up arrested. How do I safeguard myself from this? I don't like that in here it says that if I'm ever in a public place and she shows up to a public place, that I have to leave or I will get arrested. I DJ around here. I work in the nightlife. So I am not having it where I'm at a gig, I am working my job, she comes into my job, I must then leave or I'm arrested. How do I safeguard from this? They didn't say anything. So then, after he just tries to reread me the thing, we go back into the court and they're like, okay, are you satisfied with your help, your lawyer? I said, no, not at all. And this little Asian man jumped up out of the chair and couldn't even believe it. He could, because, I mean, what did he do? He didn't do anything. So I just had to have it where, there was no interactions or anything with her for the year, and, everything was fine. But it was still, a ridiculous situation, and how you can find out that, I mean, these women can ruin your life with just a whisper. And I mean, I hadn't even gotten married or anything like that. I just had it where she had an ex-boyfriend who kept trying to start a fight with me, and because I didn't back down and I kept saying, "Okay, bring it. Okay, bring it. Okay, bring it." I mean, I had at one point I'm standing on my fucking front porch with the Jehovah's Witnesses who stop by on Saturday mornings, and he pulls up in front of my house with her in the passenger seat, and he's just grilling me. Like, while I'm out there talking to the Jehovah's Witnesses, as if he was going to get out of the truck and have his ass handed to him. I mean, I was the one being harassed. I was the one having them coming to my space. I was the one having them, start problems with me. And then I was the one who, if I did anything, I would have been arrested. I don't have time for that. I mean, if I had gotten married, if that situation had gone even farther, it just would have been even worse. So, I mean, even in my good relationships, I am just at the point where there's such a negative side to this. And part of the reason where I was going to bring up growing up with a single parent thing, this was the thing I had forgot earlier on. It was the only thing I ever wanted, because it was the thing my mother didn't have. Like, I saw her, you read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The poor dad who went to college, spends his whole life working, retires, and then still has to work because they can't keep up with this lifestyle and everything they've chosen, that's my mom. So I know there's no happiness just from the status quo and all of that. So I figured, what do I want out of life? Do I want the career? Do I want, this? What do I want? I figured I just want to be married. I just want to be married and have kids and have a family and have someone I want to spend the rest of my life with all day, every day, because that's what my mom didn't have. So I would like that. And now I'm just at the point where I don't think that could happen. I don't think a lot of these women have the values to make that happen. And I don't feel safe enough in the society or the system we're in to put myself to be so vulnerable. Because again, the women that have put me in these scumbaggy situations, they're the ones that are looked at as the sort of, pillars of society, the sort of, standout. Oh, well, we're the teachers, we're the educators, we take care of the future, and then they're all scumbags hiding behind these fake names and everything like that. A lot of my shorter relationships were with people who did other things. The one, I kind of ended it, but I mean, she was this kind of artsy girl. She was probably the best out of all of them. I guess I'm just the idiot for not sticking with that one, but I don't know. Shit's fucked up. And I think we're just at a point where you have people like Gavin McInnes, for example, who really encourage the traditionalism, get married, start a family, have kids, and everything like that. But I think we're at a point where the legal system just doesn't make it safe. I mean, it's just things need to be straightened out before you can just sort of encourage someone to do that stuff without knowing the reality of it. And just saying, oh, well, you just have to handle your woman, you just have to set her straight, this, and that. It's not that simple. Not when these women can do scumbag shit to you and then have you in a situation where you can get arrested if you even try to do anything. So something's got to be fixed. The legal system reflects the feminist state, and if we're really going to fight against feminism, it's not enough to just make YouTube videos, fucking speaking against it. It's people really need to get behind the men's rights stuff and start to fix the framework of the family courts and everything like that in order to get this stuff straightened out. I've had it, and I'm pretty sure I've told this story before, where a friend of mine was driving around with his with the mother of his child, and she's cursing him out, giving him an attitude, and, this, and that. And he pulls over and says that, if you're going to act like this, I don't need to give you a ride. Somehow, I don't know if she has, like, 911 on speed dial or what, but you have this with sort of, like, hood rats, like girls who have been in the system or in public housing or anything like that, because they have these sort of mommy-daddy issues, and, the state is there to play mommy-daddy. They'll just call some CPS supervisor, so-and-so. I heard them yelling at their kid too much when they have little bickerings amongst themselves and everything. So this girl's got that mentality. She calls up the police, and she says, oh, he was trying to throw me out of the moving car, and he was trying to throw his daughter, who's in the back seat behind him, in a fucking, hooked-in car seat, like, while he's driving, he's unhooking the baby out of the back seat in the car seat and throwing her out of the moving vehicle, and, like, all this craziness. And he's just like, no, you're lying. You're crazy. This doesn't even make sense. So then it gets to a judge, and she even comes out and says, yeah, I lied. I made it up. I was just giving him attitude. I was mad at him. He wouldn't do more for me, even though she gets child support. She's only entitled to that. Anything he gives her beyond that, it's just because he's a good person and a good father. And she's nuts. But the judge goes and says, oh, well, I think you two are just in love with each other, and I think he could benefit from anger management anyway. And the thing is every one of those classes and everything like that, it's cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So think about that. A judge can sentence someone to these anger management classes that you have to pay for based on nothing. They can come out and recant and say it's a lie, and the judge can still do this. We need to get these judges in check. I don't know how there isn't a organized movement of people judging the judges, because I really think some of them have let this sort of moral, crusade of theirs go too far. So I don't know. I saw this MGTOW levels. Any level is good as long as it's not level 0. I would have to say at this point I would be MGTOW level 3. Rejects all form of personal relationships with women, including dating, one-night stands, friendships. Any contact with unfamiliar women is kept strictly professional and at a minimum. Some MGTOW might have a few exclusive close platonic female friends. However, they're selected based on high intellect and loyalty. These MGTOW will only engage in civil activities that benefit themselves. And, that's a good portion of it, because I would say that there's probably a good 90% of women that I think just can't keep up with me intellectually. And I really just don't have an interest in entertaining people who can't keep up, because that's what some of my relationships would turn into, them constantly turning to me, think of something to do, entertain me, not here to fucking be a circus for someone. And there's just too much craziness, and they can wield too much power. And, I mean, even on my own aspect, I have a lot of things I need to get myself together with as far as before I feel like I can really offer anything to anyone. Because I do think at this point, if you're going to have a bunch of women who want things both ways, you really just have to go with, okay, well, I'm going to do the conservative, traditionalist, provide everything thing, and I'm just going to hold my shit down. And then if there might ever be that person, I don't know, I would kind of recommend getting separate living quarters, or I don't know. There's got to be a line drawn in the middle, though. You can't have that shit where what's hers is hers and what's yours is ours. So I don't know. Maybe fucking move to some other country and just not, because I mean there's common law marriages. I'm trying to think of how you could get away with it without ending up in a common law civil occupancy, whatever thing. But I don't know. But yeah, that's stuff I wanted to cover because, like I said, I saw Karen's video and it was about, the people sort of going MGTOW and not realizing they are. She also mentioned men not hearing these stories about how women can screw you over and the ways that they can, the way the system endorses it, the way society endorses it, the way society endorses them being scumbags and trying to blame you and saying that their scumbag behaviors are what you force them to do as a man. Because I didn't have this stuff. I didn't have this stuff. I didn't hear these stories. I didn't have anyone to warn me, any of that. So that's why I wanted to put this out there, because hopefully what's happened to me can act as a warning to others. And like I said, I wanted to bring it up because I do want the traditionalism. I don't think a lot of people who are, MGTOW, I think they would deep down inside want traditionalism. They just don't want it on these terms. And I don't know what it's going to take to fix that, but it's got to happen. Otherwise, society is gonna fall apart. So, just wanted to put out my story as far as that stuff goes. Make sure you follow me. Check the links below. And have a good one, everyone.